Chapter 21 The Protectors of the Faith build a farm for the great sage Lingji from Samura pacifies the wind devil. The 50 petty devils fled rooted into the cave, their banners and drums smashed, to report, Your Majesty, the tiger of the vanguard is no match for the hairy-faced monk, who chased him down the mountain. The old fiend was very angry at the news, and he sat silent with his head bowed as he thought over what to do. Then the petty demons from the gate came in to announce, Your Majesty, the hairy-faced monk has killed. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 300. The tiger of the vanguard and dragged his body to the gates, where he's insulting us to provoke us to fight. The old fiend was angrier than ever when he heard this, and he said, This wretch doesn't know what he's doing, killing my commander of the vanguard although I haven't eaten his master. Hateful beast. Bring my armor. I've heard of this brother monkey, and now I think I'll go out to have a look at this 9-headed, 8-tailed monk. I'll capture him to avenge my tiger of the vanguard. The junior devils brought the armor as fast as they could, and when the old fiend had put it all on properly, he took his steel trident and led his devilish host out of the cave. He was full of martial dignity as he came out, and you can see how he was equipped. His golden helmet shone in the sun, and light was reflected from his golden armor. A pheasant's tail floated above his helmet, and the thin silk robe over his armor was pale goose yellow. The belt that girded his armor was dragon brilliant, his shining breastplate dazzled the eye. His deerskin boots were the color of locust tree blossom, his brocade kilt was patterned with willow leaves. With a sharp steel trident in his hand, he was no less awesome than the little sage Erlang. As he came out of his cave, the old fiend shouted at the top of his voice, Are you brother monkey? Monkey, who was jumping up and down on the tiger monster's corpse and brandishing his cudgel, replied, Your grandfather, Monkey, is here. Send my master out. The evil spirit looked carefully at Monkey and saw that he had a miserable little body and a pinched face, and did not even stand 4 feet tall. Poor little thing, he said with a laugh. I'd imagined that you were some sort of invincible hero, but now I see what a little sick devil you really are, all skin and bone. Monkey smiled back and said, You've no eyes in your head, my child. I may be tiny, but if you hit me on the head with the handle of your trident, I'll grow another 6 feet. Make your head hard then, the monster replied, Here it comes. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 301. The great sage did not flinch as the monster hit him, then with a bend of his waist he grew 6 feet taller, making himself 10 feet tall altogether, to the astonishment of the monster, who put his trident down and shouted, Brother Monkey, why do you come and do these defensive transformations at my gate? Stop fooling around, and come over here so we can compare tricks. My child, Monkey replied, as the saying goes, if you have any warm feelings, don't raise your hand in anger, and if you raise your hand in anger, put all feelings aside. I have a very heavy hand, and I'm afraid that you may not be able to stand my cudgel. No longer wishing to talk, the monster whirled his trident round and lunged at Monkey's chest. With unrushed expertise, Monkey did a black dragon pawing the ground movement to parry the trident with his cudgel before striking at the monster's head. There followed a fine duel between the pair of them at the mouth of the yellow wind cave. The Demon King was furious, the great sage showed his might. The furious Demon King wanted to catch Monkey in revenge for his vanguard commander. The mighty great sage intended to capture the evil spirit and rescue his master. When the trident came, the cudgel parried, when the cudgel struck, the trident blocked. One was supreme commander of the mountain, the other was the handsome Monkey King, protector of the law. At first they fought in the dust, but then they rose into mid-air. The steel-tipped trident was bright-pointed and deadly sharp, the as-you-will cudgel was black and banded with gold. Whoever was run through would go to the underworld, if either was hit he would surely meet King Yama. All depended on a fast hand and a quick eye. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 302. Strength and vigor were essential. Each was mindless of life or death, who would survive, and who would be killed. After some 30 rounds of combat between the old fiend and the great sage, the issue was still not settled. As Monkey wanted to win glory, he used an extra body trick, plucking a hair out, he chewed it into little bits, blew them all out, and shouted, "Change." They turned into well over 100 monkeys, all dressed like him, and wielding iron cudgels. They surrounded the monster in mid-air, and in his fright he countered with a trick of his own. He turned his head sharply to the southeast, opened his mouth 3 times, and blew. A yellow hurricane suddenly arose. It was really terrible. As it howled and moaned, all was changed. Without sign or shadow the yellow dust whirled, whistling through forests, toppling mountains, and uprooting trees, picking up dust to blot out the tumbling ridge. The Yellow River's waters were all in turmoil, while the Yangtze's waves were blown backwards. The Polar Palace was rocked in the sky, the Senluo Palace in the underworld was all but blown down. Heaven was filled with the shouting of arhats, the 8 great Vajrapanis were all yelling wildly. Manjusri's black-coated lion fled, Samantabhadra's white elephant was nowhere to be found. The true martial emperor's tortoise and snake were missing, Zi Tong's mule was blown away by its saddle-cloth. Traveling merchants called on heaven, boatmen made vows to the gods as they sought safety. Lives were washed away in the torrent. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 303. Fortune or death was decided by the waters. The cave palace on the magic mountain was murky dark, and Penglay, Island of Joy, was wrapped in gloom. Lao Zi could hardly manage to look after his furnace. The star of longevity put away his fan of dragon's beard grass. The Queen Mother, on her way to a peach banquet, had the pendants at her waist blown in a tangle. Erlang could not find his city of Guangzhou. Nezha could scarcely draw his sword from its scabbard. Heavenly King Li lost sight of the pagoda in his hand. Luban the carpenter dropped his gold-tipped awl. 3 stories of the pagoda at Thunder Monastery fell, and the stone bridge at Zhaozhou collapsed. The red wheel of the sun sent out no light, and all the stars in the sky were dimmed. The birds of the southern hills were carried to the north, the waters of the east lake flowed to the west. Husband was parted from wife, mother snatched from child. The Dragon King searched the seas for his yakshas. The thunder god hunted everywhere for his lightning. The 10 kings of hell looked for the judge, while the bull-headed demons searched for the horse-faced. This hurricane overturned Padarika Island, rolling up all of Guanyin scriptures. The white lotus went flying beyond the seas. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 304. And the 12 courts of the Bodhisattva were all blown down. Pengu, who had seen all winds since creation, had never seen one as fine as this. Howl, howl. As mountains and seas trembled, heaven and earth were all but blasted asunder. The hurricane that the monster had summoned up made all the little monkeys that the great sage had produced from his hair whirl round in mid-air like so many spinning wheels, and far from being able to use their cudgels, they could not even control their own bodies. At this critical moment Monkey shook his hair, and put it back on his body, then advanced to give battle with his iron cudgel held high. The monster blew another yellow hurricane at him, and it was so strong that Monkey had to shut his fiery eyes with their golden pupils tight. Opening them was out of the question. Unable to use his iron cudgel, he had to flee from the scene of battle, at which the monster put his wind away and went back to his cave. When Pig saw the great yellow hurricane blow up and cast heaven and earth into darkness, he held onto the horse and kept a grip on the carrying pole while he crouched in the hollow on the mountainside, not daring to open his eyes or raise his head as he invoked the Buddha, and made all sorts of vows to him. He did not know whether Monkey had won or lost, or whether their master was still alive. As he worried about all this, the wind died down, and the sky became clear again. He raised his head to look towards the entrance of the cave, but he could neither see any weapons nor hear any gongs or drums. The idiot did not want to get any nearer to those gates, and there was nobody else to look after the horse and the baggage, so he was stuck there, not knowing what to do, and feeling miserable. His gloomy thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Monkey shouting to the west of him. Pig half rose to his feet to welcome him and said, "That was quite a wind, elder brother. Where've you been?" "That was terrible," said Monkey, "never in my life have I known such a hurricane. That old fiend came out to fight me with a steel trident, and after we'd been at it for 30 rounds I used my extra body trick to surround him. This made him so worried that he deliberately summoned up the wind. It was really vicious, it blew so hard I couldn't stand my ground, so I had to put my tricks away and clear out. What a wind, what a wind! I can call up wind or rain, but I've never produced anything as vicious as his. Can that evil monster fight well? Pig asked. He's not bad at all, Monkey replied, and he has a very neat way with this trident. We were evenly matched, apart from that foul wind, which makes him unbeatable. Then how are we going to rescue our master? Pig asked. His rescue will have to wait, Monkey replied. I wonder if there's an oculist near here to treat my eyes. What's happened to them? Pig asked. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 305. When that monster blew his wind at me, said Monkey, it made my eyes very sore, and they keep on watering. We're halfway up a mountain, and night's falling, said Pig. Never mind about an oculist, there's nowhere for us to shelter for the night. There's no problem about shelter, Monkey replied. I don't think that evil spirit will dare to do our master any harm, so let's find the main path, and look for a house to stay in tonight. We can come back here at first light to subdue that fiend. Very well, Pig replied. Leading the horse and carrying the baggage, they came out of the hollow and went along the path. The dusk was gradually deepening when they heard dogs barking under a hill to the south of the path. They stopped to look and saw a farmhouse with a lamp shining brightly in its window. The pair of them stopped bothering to look for the path and cut straight through the grass to the gate. They saw dark magic fungus, greeny white rocks. The magic fungus was dark among the many herbs, the white rocks were green with moss. Some tiny fireflies made dots of light against the dense ranks of the forest trees. Heavy was the fragrance of the orchid, and the tender bamboo had been newly cut. A pure spring flowed along a winding bed, an ancient cypress hung over a cliff. No travelers came to this remote spot, and only wild flowers bloomed before the gate. As they did not want to march straight in, the two of them shouted, "Open up, open up." An old man came out at the head of several farm hands carrying forks, rakes and brooms. Who are you? He asked. Who are you? Journey to the West. Chapter 21 306. We are the disciples of the holy priest of the great Tang in the east, replied Monkey with a bow. We were crossing these mountains on our way to the west to visit the Buddha and ask for the scriptures when the great king of the yellow wind snatched our master away. We haven't been able to rescue him yet, but as it is getting dark we have come to beg for a night's lodging in your mansion, and we hope very much that you will help us. The old man returned his bow and said, I'm sorry, I didn't welcome you properly. This is a place where we see a lot of clouds but very few people, and when I heard you shouting at the gate I feared it might be fox spirits, tigers, bandits from the mountains, or something of the sort. I am afraid that I have stupidly offended you. I did not realize it would be two reverend gentlemen. Please come in. Taking the horse and the luggage with them they went inside, tethered the animal, put down the carrying pole, bowed to the old man, and sat down. A servant came in with tea, and when they had drunk it some bowls of sesame meal were produced. After they had eaten, the old man had beds prepared for them and suggested that they went to bed. We don't need to sleep yet, Monkey replied, adding, May I ask you, kind sir, if ointment is sold anywhere around here? Do you have a chronic eye complaint, Reverend Sir? The old man asked. I can tell you truthfully, sir, Monkey replied, that we religious men have never been ill before, and I've never had trouble with my eyes before. Then why are you asking for ointment? The old man asked. We were trying to rescue our master on the Yellow Wind Ridge today, Monkey explained, when that monster started blowing his wind at me, which made my eyes ache. They're streaming with tears now, which is why I want to find some eye ointment. A fine story, the old man commented. How could you tell such lies, a reverend gentleman, and so young a one at that? The great king of the Yellow Wind's hurricane is really terrible. It can't be compared with spring winds, autumn winds, pine and bamboo winds, or north, south, east and west winds. It must be a brain-snatching wind, interrupted Pig, or a goat's ear wind, or a hemp wind, or a head-twisting wind. No, the old man said, it's called a divine samadhi wind. What's it like? Monkey asked. It can darken heaven and earth. Make gods and devils gloomy. Split rocks open and bring cliffs down. And it doesn't stop till you're dead. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 307. The old man replied. If you'd encountered that wind, you couldn't possibly have survived. Only a god or an immortal would be able to survive such a wind. Quite right, Monkey replied, quite right. Although we're not gods or immortals ourselves, I regard them as my juniors, and this life of mine is extremely hard to snuff out. All the wind could do was to make my eyes very sore. If what you say is true, the old man said, you must really be somebody. Although there is nowhere that sells eye ointment here, I sometimes suffer from watering eyes myself when I'm in the wind, and I once met an unusual person who gave me a prescription for 3-flower 9-seed ointment. This cures all inflammations of the eye. Monkey bowed his head, chanted a respectful "Naa," and said, please put a little on my eyes for me to try. The old man consented, went inside, and brought out a tiny agate bottle. Removing the stopper, he dipped a jade hairpin inside and put a tiny amount in Monkey's eyes, then told him not to open them. He could go to sleep without worrying, and in the morning he would be cured. When he had finished applying it, he put the stopper back the bottle, and gave it to a servant to put away inside. Pig opened their bundles, spread out their bedding, and told Monkey to go to bed. Monkey groped about so wildly with his eyes shut that Pig laughed at him and said, would you like a blind man's stick, sir? Chaff-guzzling moron, Monkey retorted, do you want to make a blind man of me? The idiot chuckled himself quietly to sleep, but Monkey sat thinking on the bed until midnight before he dozed off. At about 5 the next morning, just before the break of day, Brother Monkey rubbed his face, opened his eyes and said, it certainly is good ointment. I can see far, and more clearly than ever. He turned round to look behind him, and to his astonishment there was no house, windows, or doors. All that could be seen were some ancient locust trees and tall willows. The pair of them were sleeping on cushions of green sedge. What are you shouting for? Asked Pig as he woke up. Open your eyes and look, replied Monkey. The idiot raised his head, and when he saw that there was nobody there, he leapt up in a panic with the words, where's our horse? Over there tied to a tree, said Monkey. What about the luggage? There beside your head. The wretches, said Pig, moving way in the middle of the night. Damn it, we must have been almost dead asleep. However did they dismantle the house without us hearing a thing? Idiot, said Monkey with a snigger, don't go shouting all over the place. Can you see what that piece of paper on the tree over there is? Pig went over, tore it down, and saw that there were 4 lines of verse on it. This farm was not inhabited by mortals. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 308. The revealers of the truth produced the house by magic. I gave you good medicine to cure your eyes, subdue demons with all your heart, and never hesitate. So those tough gods came to play their tricks, although I haven't called the roll since they changed the dragon into a horse, said Monkey. Don't show off, brother, said Pig. How could they possibly answer to your roll call? You don't realize, Monkey replied, that the protectors of the faith, the 6 Dings, the 6 Jiyas, the revealers of the truth of the 5 regions, and the 4 duty gods have all been ordered by the Bodhisattva to give secret protection to our master. They reported their names to me then, but as I've had you with me recently I haven't needed them again, which is why I haven't called the roll. Brother, Pig replied, if they have been ordered to protect our master in secret, then of course they can't appear in their true forms. That was why they produced the magic farm. You mustn't be angry with them. Yesterday they gave you eye ointment and fed us. They did all they could. Don't be angry with them. Let's go and rescue the master instead. How right you are, said Monkey. It's not far from here to the Yellow Wind Cave, so there's no need for you to move. You'd better stay in the wood and look after the horse and the luggage while I go to the cave to see what I can find out about where our master is before fighting the monster again. Yes, said Pig, find out for sure whether he's alive or dead. If the master's dead, we'd better each go our own way, and if he's alive we'll do everything we can to save him. Stop talking such nonsense, replied Monkey. I'm off. With a single jump he arrived at the entrance to the cave, where the gates were still locked as everyone was asleep. Monkey did not call on them to open the gates as he did not want to alarm the monsters. Instead he said a spell, made a magic movement with his hand, shook himself, and turned into a neat little mosquito. There are some lines about it that go. Its troublesome little body has a sharp bite, its faint buzz echoes like thunder. Clever at getting through the curtains round the bed, it particularly loves the summer's warm weather. It fears only smoke and fly swatters, and loves the brilliance of the lamp. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 309. Light and tiny, it flies straight in. Entering the evil spirit's cave. Seeing that the lowly demon on the gate was fast asleep and snoring, Monkey bit him on the face, at which the creature woke up and said, "My lord. What an enormous mosquito. It's raised a huge lump with a single bite." Then he opened his eyes and announced, "It's light." The two gates creaked open, and Monkey flew inside with a buzz to see the old demon giving orders that a very close watch was to be kept at all the gates, and all the weapons are to be assembled at such and such a spot. "I'm afraid that yesterday's wind may not have killed Brother Monkey," he was saying, "and I think he's bound to come back today. When he does, I'll finish him off." When he heard this, Monkey flew across to the back of the hall where he saw a door that was tightly closed. He slipped through the crack between the two leaves of the door and found himself in a large empty garden, on one side of which was the wind-settling stake with the Tang priest tied to it. The tears were pouring down Santang's face, as he wondered where Monkey and Pig were. Monkey stopped flying as he stung his shaven pate and called, "Master." "Monkey," said Santang, recognizing his voice, "do you want to get me killed? Where are you calling me from?" "I'm on your head, master. Don't be anxious or worried. We are sure to catch that evil spirit and save your life." "How long will it be till you catch that evil spirit, disciple?" "Pig has already killed the tiger monster who captured you," Monkey replied, "but that old fiend has a terrible way with a hurricane. All the same, I'm certain that I can catch him today, so don't worry and stop crying. I'm off now." With those words he buzzed away to the front hall, where he saw the old monster sitting on his throne and reviewing his captains. A junior evil spirit suddenly rushed in with a command flag in his hands and announced, "I had just gone out to patrol the mountain, Your Majesty, when I saw a monk with a long snout and big ears sitting in the woods. If I hadn't run as fast as I could, he'd have caught me. But I didn't see that hairy-faced monk." "If Brother Monkey wasn't there," the old fiend said, "he must have been killed by the wind, and he won't be going off to get soldiers to rescue his master." "If the wind killed him, Your Majesty," the other devils said, "we are in luck. But if he wasn't killed and went to fetch divine soldiers instead, what's to be done?" "What's so frightening about divine soldiers?" the old fiend said. "None of them can put down my wind except the Bodhisattva Lingji, so there's no need to fear the rest of them." When Monkey heard this as he sat on a roof beam, he was beside himself with delight. Flying straight out, he reverted to his real form, and went back to the wood, calling, "Brother." Journey to the West. Chapter 21 310. "Where have you been?" Pig asked. "I chased an evil spirit with a command flag away just now." "Good for you," said Monkey with a smile, "good for you. I changed myself into a mosquito, and went into the cave to see our master. He was tied to a wind-settling stake in there and crying. I told him not to cry, flew up to a roof beam, and had a good listen. I saw the one with the command flag come puffing and panting in to report that you'd chased him away, and that he hadn't seen me. The old find was making some wild guesses. First he said that I had been killed by his wind, then he said I'd gone to ask for the help of divine soldiers. It's wonderful he gave the fellow's name away. Whose name? Pig asked. He said that no divine soldier could suppress his wind except the Bodhisattva Lingji, Monkey continued, adding, but I don't know where the Bodhisattva Lingji lives. As they were wondering what to do, an old man came along the road. Look at him. He was strong enough not to need a stick, but his beard was like ice and his flowing hair snowy. Although his gold-flecked sparkling eyes seemed somewhat dim, his aged bones and muscles had not lost their strength. Slowly he walked, back bent and head bowed down, but his broad brow and rosy cheeks were those of a boy. If you gave him a name from his looks, the star of longevity had come out of his cave. When Pig saw him he said with delight, "Brother, you know the saying, if you want to know the way down the mountain, ask a regular traveler. Why don't you ask him?" The great sage put his iron cudgel away, unhitched his clothes, and went up to the old man. "Greetings, grandfather," he said. Half replying to him and half not, the old man returned his bow and asked, "Where are you from, monk, and what are you doing in this desolate spot?" "We are holy monks going to fetch the scriptures," Monkey replied. "Yesterday we lost our master here, and we would like to ask you, sir, where the Bodhisattva Lingji lives." "Lingji lives 1,000 miles due south of here," the old man said, "on a mountain called Little Mount Sumeru. There is a holy place there which is the monastery where he preaches the scriptures. Are you going to fetch scriptures from him?" Journey to the West. Chapter 21 311. "No," Monkey replied, "we're going not to fetch scriptures from him, but to trouble him over something else." "How does one get there?" The old man pointed south and said, "That twisting path will take you." Thus tricking the great sage into turning round to look, the old man turned into a puff of wind and disappeared from sight. All that could be seen of him was a piece of paper he had left beside the road. On it there were 4 lines of verse that read, "I report to the great sage equaling heaven, that I am Long Life Li. On Sumura Mountain there is a flying dragon staff, the weapon the Buddha once gave to Lingji." Brother Monkey took the note, turned, and set off. "What lousy luck we've been having for the last few days, brother," said Pig. "For the last couple of days we've been seeing ghosts even in broad daylight." "Who was that old man who turned into a wind?" Monkey handed the piece of paper to him, and when he had read it he said, "Who is this Long Life Li?" "He's the great white planet of the West," Monkey replied. Pig immediately bowed low and said, "My benefactor, my benefactor. If he hadn't put in a memorial to the Jade Emperor, I don't know what would have become of me." "So you're capable of feeling gratitude," said Monkey. "Meanwhile, you're to hide deep in these woods without showing yourself, and keep a close watch on the baggage and the horse while I go to Mount Sumeru to ask the Bodhisattva to come." "Understood," said Pig, "understood. You go as fast as you can. I've learned the tortoise's trick, and can pull my head in when necessary." The great sage Monkey leapt into the air, and headed south on his somersault cloud at tremendous speed. He could cover 1,000 miles with a nod of his head, and do 800 stages with a twist of his waist. It was only an instant before he saw a high mountain surrounded by auspicious clouds and a propitious aura. In a valley on the mountain there was a monastery from which the distant sounds of bells and stone chimes could be heard, and a haze of incense smoke hung above it. Monkey went straight to the gate, where he saw a lay brother with prayer beads round his neck who was invoking the Buddha. "Greetings, lay brother," said Monkey, clasping his hands in salutation. The lay brother bowed to him in reply and said, "Where are you from, sir? Is this where the Bodhisattva Lingji preaches the scriptures?" Monkey asked. "Yes, this is the place," the lay brother replied. "Have you a message for him?" Journey to the West. Chapter 21 312. "I would like you to tell him that I am Brother Sun Wukong, the great sage equaling heaven, a disciple of the Patriarch Santang, the younger brother of His Majesty the Emperor of the Great Tang in the East, and there is a matter about which I should like to see the Bodhisattva." "That's far too many words for me to remember, sir," said the lay brother with a smile. "Then tell him that the Tang priest's disciple Sun Wukong is here," Monkey replied. The lay brother did as he asked and went into the preaching hall to pass on the message. The Bodhisattva put on his cassock, burnt some incense, and prepared to receive him. As the great sage went through the gate and looked inside, he saw a hall full of brocade, a room of awe-inspiring majesty. All the monks were chanting the Lotus Sutra, while the aged head priest lightly struck the golden chime. The offerings made to the Buddha were magic fruit and magic flowers. Set out on tables were meatless delicacies. Dazzling candles sent golden flames up to the rainbow, from fragrant incense, jade smoke rose to the translucent mist. With the sermon over and the mind at peace, a trance was entered. White clouds coiled around the tops of the pine trees. When the sword of wisdom is sheathed, the demon is beheaded, great are the powers of the Prajnaparamita. The Bodhisattva straightened his clothes and came out to meet Monkey, who climbed the steps into the hall and sat in the guest seat. When the orders were given for tea to be brought, Monkey said, "I won't trouble you to give me tea. My master is in trouble on the Yellow Wind Mountain, and I have come to ask you, Bodhisattva, to use your great powers to subdue the demon and rescue my master." Journey to the West. Chapter 21 313. "I have been ordered by the Tathagata Buddha to guard over the Yellow Wind Monster," the Bodhisattva replied. "The Tathagata gave me a wind-settling pill and a flying dragon staff. When I captured that monster before, the Tathagata spared his life and exiled him to live in seclusion on this mountain, where he is not allowed to kill or do any other evil. I never imagined that he would want to murder your master today. I must hold myself responsible for this, as I have failed to carry out my orders." The Bodhisattva wanted to keep Monkey for a meal and a talk, but in response to Monkey's urgent pleading, he took his flying dragon staff and rode off with the great sage by cloud. A moment later they reached the Yellow Wind Mountain, and the Bodhisattva said, "Great sage, as this evil monster is a bit scared of me, I'd better stay here inside the cloud while you go down and challenge him to come out and fight. Once you've lured him out, I can use my divine power." Doing as he suggested, Monkey brought his cloud down to land, and without more ado he smashed down the gates of the cave with his iron cudgel. "Fiendish monster," he shouted, "give my master back." The junior fiends on the gate all rushed back to report this, and the old monster said, "That damned ape really has a cheek. Instead of behaving himself properly, he comes to smash my gates down. This time I'll use a magic wind that will certainly blow him to death." Putting on his armor and taking his trident as before, he went out through the gate, and the moment he saw Monkey, he thrust straight at his chest with his trident, not uttering a single word. Monkey sidestepped to dodge it and hit back at the monster's face with his cudgel. When only a few rounds had been fought, the monster turned to the southeast, and was just going to open his mouth and blow out a wind when the Bodhisattva Lingji appeared in mid-air and dropped the flying dragon staff on him. While the monster recited all sorts of spells, an 8-clawed golden dragon grabbed him with 2 of its claws and smashed him several times against a rock face. At this the monster reverted to his real form, a brown marten. Monkey rushed at it and had raised his cudgel to kill it when the Bodhisattva stopped him and said, "Don't kill it, great sage. I must take it back to see the Tathagata. He used to be a marten who had obtained the way underneath the Vulture Peak, and once he stole some of the pure oil from a crystal lamp. When the lamp went out, he was so afraid of being caught by a Vajrapani that he ran away and became a spirit monster here. The Tathagata decided that as this was not a capital offense, I should be sent to keep guard over him, but if he took life or committed any other evil deeds, he was to be taken to the Vulture Peak. As he has now offended you, great sage, and captured the Tang priest with the intention of murdering him, I must take him to see the Tathagata to be sentenced for his crime before this business can be regarded as cleared up." Pig, meanwhile, who had been wondering about Monkey as he waited in the wood, heard a shout from the mountainside, "Pig, bring the luggage and the horse out." Recognizing the voice as Monkey's, the idiot rushed out of the wood with the things and asked Monkey, "How did it go?" I asked the Bodhisattva Lingji to come, and he used his flying dragon staff to capture the evil spirit, who turned out to have been the spirit of a brown-coated marten, and was taken off to the Vulture Peak by the Bodhisattva to see the Buddha. We too had better go into the cave to rescue our master. The idiot was very pleased to hear the news. The pair of them charged into the cave and killed all the evil hares, fox fiends, roebuck, and deer inside with the iron club and the rake. Then they went into the garden at the back to rescue their master. When he was outside he asked, "How did you two capture that evil spirit? How did you manage to rescue me?" Monkey told him all about how Lingji had subdued the fiend, and Santang expressed his gratitude at great length while. Journey to the West. Chapter 21 314. The two prepared a meal from the meatless food that there was in the cave. Then they left the cave and looked for the main path west once more. If you don't know what happened later, listen to the explanation in the next installment.